It's not the house that's haunted. It's your son.
What's your favorite scary movie?
What's the boogeyman?
As a matter of fact, it was.
What's up, my spooky friends? It's Marva from Slashers in Sync. I'm sure you guys have already noticed. Today's intro is a little different. MJ is not currently with me on today's episode. I just thought I would give him the liberty of taking a break for today. I believe he will be with me for next week's episode. Today, however, we're going to be covering the movie Trap, a movie that came out in 2024, and I heard a lot of interesting reviews about this movie, both on the good and on the bad. For those of you who are new, we are Slashers in Sync. I usually have another host with me by the name of MJ. He and I are huge horror fanatics, so we take the time weekly to go over horror movies or just the horror franchise in general, or horror genre in general, I should say, and kind of give our thoughts on different ideas, different movies, different things. Last week's episode was Ari Aster versus Jordan Peele, just the two directors and the overall concepts that these two directors brought to fruition whenever it came to horror and the new-ish subgenre that they popularized called elevated horror, if you will. So if you haven't already checked it out, it should be the episode right below this, but if you're already here and you're already listening in and are more interested in the movie Trap, then please by all means continue. So like I said, this movie came out in 2024. Clearly we're in 2025. MJ and I were surprisingly not as proactive watching horror movies this previous year. At least the new releases. We were watching a lot of horror films, more so on like streaming platforms or just movies we've watched in the past, movies that were in the 80s, like the golden era of horror, if you will. But we didn't really tackle too many current ones aside from Abigail, I want to say. He and I have been taking the time to watch the other films, so you guys may get episodes dedicated to those movies or just an overall summary of how 2024 was like. I do know that Nosferatu came out late 24, so we're probably going to be watching that very, very soon. I know we're a little late to the game, but the holidays are very hectic for the both of us, so and I'm sure for everybody else too. So we'll definitely take the time to talk about that very soon. Who knows? It might even be next week's episode. But we're just going to go ahead and dive into the movie Trap. So he essentially declared in an interview that the plot of the movie Trap was inspired by the Washington, D.C. Operation Flagship sting operation that occurred in December 15th of 1985, which was organized by the U.S. Marshals Service and the Metropolitan Police to lure wanted fugitives to the Washington Convention Center under the pretense of free tickets. It resulted into 101 arrests and one of the largest and most successful mass arrests of fugitives by the U.S. law enforcement. So for those of you who have already seen the movie, you know, and can kind of pick up on where that inspiration came from. M. Night Shyamalan had a few different movies come out throughout the last couple of years that were horror based, and no matter how he decided to tackle the idea of horror, it seemed to have had a lot of controversy behind it. One of the more current ones that I've seen, and one of the more current ones that I'm sure you guys have seen, would be Knock on the Cabin. So very similar to Trap, I got very contradicting reviews and contradicting feedback about the film after I had actually watched it. And I myself formulated my own opinions on it. Quick summary, I thought it was overhyped and I didn't really like it. I think Batista definitely tried to sell the movie, but the overall narrative and motive of the antagonists didn't justify the means. But I don't want to get into Knock on the Cabin too much. We're just going to go ahead and go straight into the Trap movie. So the movie essentially starts off with a kid singing along to some pop music in a car with her parent driving. Very classic, like middle school girl vibes, if you will. They seem to be in the city and more of an urban area. And from the surroundings, you can kind of tell that they're leading towards like either a convention center or a stadium. So we come to find out that the daughter, Riley, has actually struck up a deal with her father, Cooper, that if she got mostly A's for the semester, she would get tickets to see her favorite artist, Lady Raven. I don't know about you guys, but A's were a must in my household, and there was no form of reward. If I didn't get an A, then it was just more of like, why weren't you trying too hard enough? So I'm very happy that this kid got to live her dreams by, getting a good grade. It feeds my soul, if you will. But essentially, we see the two get to the concert very early. They wait in line, and they go through all the security checkpoints. Cooper essentially tells Riley that instead of the nosebleed seats that he had planned to get for her, she would be sitting on the floor with the rest of general admission close to the stage. So clearly they have like folding chairs that you can sit on whenever you're sitting in the GA section. But you are a whole lot closer to the stage than anybody else in any other seat throughout the entire stadium. With this additional surprise, Riley is thrilled. Like, she's fucking ecstatic. And even more so that she wants to get to the concert like at a quicker pace. So she's almost impatient to get seated and see where her seat's at and everything along those lines. So along the way to the seats, they make their way to the concession stand. And I think Cooper kind of makes a comment about might as well get the snacks now before the lines get really long. And once they get all their little snackies, they go and they sit down at their seats and wait for the debut of Lady Raven. So obviously, up until this point, the movie has very much a innocent vibe. Father-daughter bonding time. The two of them seem really close. So clearly, you wouldn't think that this would be an introduction to a horror movie. But around this point in the film, things start to take like a turn, more so in the thriller aspect. So you actually see Cooper taking notice of the fact that there's a lot of security throughout the entire stadium. More so than what a standard concert has, and they have even more police personnel stationed out throughout the entire stadium. And this is only on the inside of the stadium where the seats are. So Cooper decides to step away from Riley and take note of the exits and entrances of the stadium to see even more police personnel along with SWAT rolling in. So Cooper leaves from the seats and actually goes walking around the stadium, and you see him take note of all the law enforcement officials coming around and even SWAT coming around. You see almost like this like not paranoia, but like worry come onto Cooper's face. But within a couple minutes, he makes his way back to Riley and is getting ready to ask her a question about the concert overall. When the show finally begins, he essentially gets interrupted by Lady Raven coming on stage. There doesn't really seem to be an opening act. Lady Raven just kind of takes the concert full storm. And all the girls essentially go screaming and wild for Lady Raven. As the show continues, Cooper once again steps away from Riley, and it seems like whatever question he was going to ask, he decided to act out on it himself. So he continues to look into the stadium, trying to figure out why there's so many law enforcement people, and he makes a stop by the restroom while obviously taking notes and making observations before he heads back to Riley, and sees an older woman washing her hands in the men's room. And she seems to have Cooper's full attention while nobody else is noticing her aside from Cooper. You can actually see like the fear and now the paranoia coming into his face, where he's trying to comprehend how this older woman is in the room to begin with. And two, why isn't nobody else noticing them? So Cooper is severely thrown off by this. And he actually goes to Riley, and within a few minutes, once again, breaks away from her. I swear it was probably like maybe like 2, 3, 4, at most 5 minutes that he was there before he just steps away once more. And at this point, you can tell, despite Riley being at a concert that she's been dreaming about and seeing an artist that she genuinely loves and is obsessed with, she takes no note of the fact that her father's not with her and that he keeps leaving. She even tells him like, hey, stay here. I want to enjoy the concert with you. So this almost re-emphasizes on the fact that these two have a very, very strong bond. Cooper seems a little frustrated, but he tells Riley that he'll stay and he'll watch, and he essentially just stands in his seat. He's brooding. You can tell that he's a little annoyed that he's not able to move around freely, while his daughter to the side of him is having the time of her life, just screaming along to all the lyrics. The scene suddenly cuts to the intermission. Mind you, before this cut, you see the camera slowly zooming in on Cooper's face, and his eyes almost shift into this very deep black color. Almost like as if he's going into survival mode or hunter mode, if you will. But during this cut, there's an intermission to the show, and the father-daughter duo are at the merchandise stand, and they're waiting for a shirt. Riley asked for the classic tour shirt, but there seems to be a girl in line after her claiming that she was waiting for the shirt first. And Riley's about to not necessarily put up a fight, but stand her ground when her father essentially tells her like, hey, like, who knows, maybe she really was here, just go ahead and hand it to her. And Riley listens to Cooper and actually gives up the shirt to the girl, and the salesman or the staff takes notice of this and ends up striking a conversation with Cooper. Now, I don't know if Cooper calculated this or if it just happened to be circumstances, but he's able to get the staff member to open up, and he asks him what the hell's going on with the stadium and why there's so many security personnel and just so many police around. Mind you, this man's not a security guard. He's just somebody who works at the stadium. But after asking that one question, and we never figure out his name, he fucking spills the beans. He explains to Cooper that the Butcher, a serial killer known within the area, the city itself, is thought to be here at the show, and the whole event is taking place in an attempt to catch him. The staff member essentially shares the secret go phrase with Cooper, most idiotic thing in the entire fucking world, and even goes as far as to explain what the profiler shared with the entire team, meaning everybody who's working in the stadium, the police, security personnel, and SWAT. So Cooper overhears a secret go phrase, and just essentially gets a full rundown of what an official profiler shared with the entire team, about what characteristics the Butcher will have and will carry himself to be, both physically, emotionally, and I guess third, psychologically. You can essentially tell that Cooper is completely thrown off by this information, and he looks to Riley so that this way they could go back to their seat. Cooper essentially knows at this point there is no way in hell that Riley is going to leave this concert, so he's just weighing out his options, if you will. This point in the movie, and when I first saw the trailer for Trap, I was convinced that the father, or Cooper, would not be the killer. That the trailer was trying to sell the father being the killer too heavy, so it would actually be the younger daughter, Riley, and that the father is trying to cover up for the daughter, or Riley. And I only am saying this because this prefaces everything that I'm about to say. So after the staff personnel told Cooper to come back within 15 minutes, for like once Riley and Cooper left, the staff member essentially pulled Cooper to the side and said, hey, like just come back in 15 minutes and I will hook you up, essentially. Like they ran out of the shirts that Riley had wanted, but he was willing to run to the back and see if there's any more and essentially just give Cooper one because of the interaction that he saw that Cooper, his daughter, had with that one girl. So Cooper makes it back to his seat with Riley and he gets on his phone. Only after taking note of a man being escorted by the police personnel, and the police were actually getting closer to his seat, meaning that the police were arresting and interviewing all the men, or at least the father figures, attending the Lady Raven concert. So basically, after Cooper talked to the stadium staff member, he decided to go back to his seat, and this is the first time we see him pull out his phone. But he's only going on his phone because he takes notice of the fact that how the police and security personnel started off at the most highest in like nosebleed seats have come down through each row and are getting closer and closer and closer to the general admission area. We finally see Cooper open up his phone and we see what's on his phone. And he gets on an app. And the app gives us a video feedback. But it's not the kind of video feedback you're expecting. It's a young man tied to a chair in what looks like a basement. And Cooper takes a big sigh, like as if a big sigh of relief, and gets ready for the show to begin once more. So at this point, again, I'm still hoping that it's Riley that's the killer and it's not Cooper, because in all honesty, I won't say that I can't stand movies that give away their whole plot in the trailer, because I'm not one who's going to sit back and cry about spoilers or the plot being exposed, if you will, before I can even watch the movie. However, I always like an unexpected twist. And if this movie was willing to entertain the idea of a child serial killer, then that would have shot it up for me. But I also understand that certain topic is not meant for everyone and may not be approved by everyone. And it doesn't necessarily mean that M. Night Shyamalan is going to make a movie like that. This is just my high hopes. So at this point, at least in my eyes, it reconfirms, or I guess confirms, that Cooper for sure is the butcher and that Riley has no fucking idea. So now my mentality of the movie shifts. Now it's more so catch me if you can kind of movie. And not the cute little Leonardo DiCaprio film. No. This is a darker one. At this point, again, I very much was like convinced that Cooper was the killer. No matter which direction the movie tried to steer me or tried to throw me off, if there was anything that the plot was going to try to attempt to do, which I guess thankfully it didn't. I don't know. I guess Cooper once again just ends up excusing himself from the concert with Riley. But this time he actually has the excuse of getting the shirt that Riley wanted. So with this information, Riley doesn't necessarily put up much of a fight, because anytime that Cooper has stepped away after Riley told him, hey, I want to watch the concert with you, I want to enjoy the concert with you, this is the first time that she doesn't do it. So Cooper is able to slip away, and he makes his way back to the merchandise stand and meets up with his homie, the Lucy Lips staff member, if you will. The two of them make it to the back of the stadium where everybody has all the Lady Ribbon merchandise stored. And at least for me, I feel the tension in this scene built up. Now, at this point, me and MJ were watching this movie at home, so we're on the couch and we look at each other, and I just can't help but let the oh fuck line slip, meaning that I'm convinced that this poor sweet soul, this poor sweet staff member is going to get fucking butchered, pun intended, by Cooper. So obviously the tension keeps rising, and you see Cooper becoming more and more animated as he's talking to the staff member. And in my eyes, I kind of see it as Cooper is trying to really sell the fact that he is normal and that he's not freaking out. And it made the back of my, like the hair on the back of my neck stand up. But the two of them are still looking for the torso for Riley, and the staff member actually keeps talking about how he's a fan of the Butcher and how he's been following his kills since the beginning due to having a personal connection with him. So I guess somewhere along either his friend passed or the first person who was killed was a friend of a friend. So by extension, he feels like he has a personal connection to the Butcher. And this staff member seems to really just be going fucking balls to the walls over the Butcher and the kills and the way that he kills and all the above. I mean, at this point, I think he let it slip that the Butcher has killed 15, 16, 17 people. I think he's on either number 17, 18, or 19. It's right under 20, but in the high teens from what I remember. And I guess Cooper really tries to uncover and entertain the idea of asking the staff member to begin with, like, how are you connected to the Butcher? So once he kind of gives the full story and all the connection and how he's been following each kill and even making like a pseudo documentary of the Butcher, if you will, Cooper gets the shirt that he originally wanted and heads back to his seat. Sorta. He actually ends up stealing the key card that the staff member used to go to the back, to the staff onlys area. And with that, he starts snooping around the building. From one area to the other, he ends up going into the break room at the very end, where a bunch of SWAT members are going through a debriefing about the Butcher and how they plan on executing their plan and capturing him. So at this point, I'm just going fucking crazy because the amount of luck that Cooper has in this movie is insane. Like, it's coming off almost as if he has plot armor. Cooper is unfucking touchable. Nobody can get him. He always figures out a way to blend in or find a way out. Like at one point, I think we even see him go into the kitchen and he grabs like a fucking apron that the staff members are wearing, sets up a whole scene to where one of the kitchen members ends up getting burned by oil, goes up to the roof to try and see if there's another exit, and runs into a bunch of the SWAT and police personnel, gives the go phrase that this fucking staff member gave him, and it works. I thought he was going to get arrested right there, but it actually fucking works. And then that's whenever he weasels his way over to the break room where all the SWAT people are. He just has way too much fucking luck at this point. He's literally able to adapt to whatever situation he's in and take on a persona that allows for him to get through any kind of crowd. You literally see Cooper go from sleuthing and trying to figure out a way out to the second he sees all these armored up police members, he's suddenly a very meek and obedient person walking through the SWAT crowd. Like me personally, I feel very uncomfortable whenever I see any form of law enforcement. But Cooper just cuts right the fuck through the big crowd, even though the big boss is giving like the debriefing. He literally goes, grabs a cup of coffee while he's listening in on everything. And even one of the SWAT team members asks him for the sugar. And this motherfucker, for whatever fucking reason or how, I don't know, maybe he's super fucking observant, I guess, knows exactly where the sugar is. That's what the SWAT member asked for. Like me and MJ were just looking at each other in disbelief at this point because I thought he would have to actually go looking for the sugar. Nah, man. Cooper just said, "Oh yeah, it's in the bottom cabinet over here." Opened up the cabinet, pulled out the sugar like as if he's been there every fucking day for the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years. Or hell, he's the one who puts it there, right? So once he kind of shifts his way back through the crowd into the area where the regular staff personnel is at, he wreaks even more havoc. So he goes through, I think, a couple of more departments in the stadium staff, just to try to find another way out. And he comes to find out that through the different conversations that he listens into, that the only way in or out of the stadium without law enforcement being involved is through the backstage exit. And you kind of see the wheels in Cooper's head turn at this point. So Cooper finds his way back to his seat, and he's trying to find a way to make sure he can leave without being questioned. Because literally every single exit and entrance has staff personnel, and people are being questioned as they leave and as they enter. Now, I don't know if Cooper doesn't feel comfortable being questioned in front of Riley, or if he's just trying to avoid being questioned at all at this point. But it's not just the exits. The police are even closer. I think they're on the final seated area before they start making their way through the GA. And this is when a guest singer by the name of Parker Wayne comes on. And he comes out through a trap door, and Cooper gets this bright idea. You literally see a light bulb go off in his head. For some odd reason, he thinks it's a good idea to bring up to Riley that the two of them should go exploring in the trapdoor area while the concert is going on. That's the unironically bright idea that Cooper had. Riley gives the answer that we're all thinking, which is no fucking way. I want to watch the concert from here. Like, why the fuck would this kid give up her GA ticket just to go through the trapdoor and go snooping in a stadium where she could potentially get kicked out? Cooper keeps eyeing the door, and you can actually tell that he's irritated. At this point, I thought he was either going to strike Riley or lash out, but he didn't. This man has supreme fucking control. And after the door closes, Cooper is left with no other way of trying to find his way out. So I think at this point, he steps away to make another break for it. But he's walking in a very interesting way, almost like walking backwards. And he makes his way to the back of the general admission area, right before, I think, a row right in front of where the police personnel are. And he actually comes across Lady Raven's uncle himself. So Cooper and the guy who and Lady Raven's uncle is played by M. Night Shyamalan. Cooper and I guess Lady Raven's uncle hit it off, and they start talking. And Cooper tells a lie, or at least I think it's a lie, about how Riley just had leukemia and that Lady Raven is the reason why she's even alive. This is literally minutes after Riley tells her that Lady Raven picks out a dream girl to go out on stage and dance along with them, getting backstage access. So I think Riley tells Cooper this first, and Cooper either knows where to go or just kind of makes his way back to figure out who to contact to get Riley backstage. Not to feed into her dreams, no, to figure out a way for the two of them to get out without any form of law enforcement getting involved. So the uncle buys into the story that Cooper is selling, which is Riley had severe leukemia. And within the next 5 minutes of the movie, Lady Raven's uncle and the rest of the close crew members walk up to Riley and ask her to be the dream girl for the night. Riley agrees, and once the two make it backstage, Cooper starts to relax for a bit. All of this is short-lived, though, because he sees the profiler, a lady who looks a lot like his mother, backstage, barking orders through a mic to for the rest of her team to hear. Cooper also overhears exactly what this profiler is saying, which is, we should be able to find him. We can't let him loose. Like, he's not allowed to go anywhere. If anybody's going back and forth outside of the stadium, into the stadium, or outside of the show and back into the show, we should flag them, because clearly they're probably the butcher. After hearing this, Cooper tenses up once more, not just because of what he heard, but also because of the fact that the profiler looks a lot like the woman in the restroom, who, at this point, I'm pretty much convinced is the mother. And he can't go anywhere because at this point, Riley is on stage, dancing her heart out with her favorite artist of all time. So, to kind of backpedal, if you will, one of the reasons why Cooper becomes very tense in the beginning of the movie, before he takes notice of the law personnel, is that he comes across one of the mothers of a previous friend of Riley's. So Riley, being the sweet, cute little girl that she is, seems to be having a lot of trouble at school with her friends, or at least her once friends, who are now her bullies. And she is just not able to get along with them. I don't know what happened, what kind of falling out they had. We don't really get the details throughout the movie. But essentially, Riley does not have a good taste in her mouth whenever it comes to her friends. And I guess the parents tried to get involved at one point or another, but it didn't really work out all too well. And the mom of Riley's ex-friends, if you will, really tries to connect with Cooper for the two of them to coordinate a date for all the girls to get together. Now, I don't know if the mom of this bully group knows exactly what happened or thinks that Riley is a good influence on her daughter. But all in all, she really doesn't seem to be taking no for an answer. Cooper leaves, and I think one of the few other times that he's exploring the stadium area, he runs into her again. She starts making a big scene, and then you see Cooper become very tense and very frustrated and just kind of tell her, like, you know what, fine, we'll coordinate something. Just in the back of your mind, you can hear him say, in his head, of course, leave me the fuck alone. But anyway, this, like, the girls essentially mark out and lash out against the mom. So you see that, like, I guess the daughter of this mother, like, yell at her and just, like, go fucking crazy. And I think either the mom or the daughter calls the other a bitch. And the attention immediately shifts back to Riley. All of this is short-lived, though. All this lightheartedness, the cute little back and forth is done. Because you essentially see, like, the song becoming done. Lady Raven's manager has informed that, the song is essentially over. Riley comes back to Cooper, and this is where Lady Raven's manager informed Cooper and Riley that they'll be able to leave after the encore that the artist will be performing is done. So, essentially, Riley's done dancing, doing the display of the Dream Girl, and she has to stay backstage to ensure that obviously it doesn't disrupt the rest of the show. So she's just there watching Lady Raven do the encore, and once that's done, the two of them can leave backstage. And you can tell that Cooper really just wants to fucking go. He's ready to leave, but he can't because the manager actually discloses to the duo, the father-daughter duo, that the Dream Girl night is not over quite just yet. They have some goodies. I think they need to say their final goodbyes. Riley gets to, like, see the rest of the crew members, if you will. Mind you, Lady Raven has been, like, decked out throughout this entire show as far as guest stars go. You have Parker Wayne, who's played by Russ, and then you have another character who's played by Kid Cudi, who also shows up in the concert and gives off, or collaborates with Lady Raven for one of the songs that has been out. So you see all these stars kind of walking back and forth across stage, and now they're really, like, backstage. So while Cooper and Riley are waiting for Lady Raven to come out, Cooper actually overhears the team that is working out of a monitoring office that they've been trying to find the butcher. So this confirms all the suspicions that Cooper has had. The profiler, the one that we saw earlier backstage while Cooper was watching Riley dance, is saying that she's confident that they should have found him by now, and that the total attendance, there were over 3,000 men, so they couldn't interview all of them in one night. Therefore, the profiler is essentially closing the chapter on the ability of finding the butcher. After hearing all this, Cooper gets even more anxious, which is a little weird. At least for me, I would kind of relax at that point. Not necessarily bring my guard down, but relax, because the profiler seems to not necessarily be giving up, but trying to figure out other avenues to explore to find the butcher. But he's very fucking anxious to leave. And I guess in the conversation with all the different team members in the monitoring room, it comes to learn that Lady Raven is the only person that has clearance to leave without being questioned. So it's not just getting backstage to go. You have to be with Lady Raven in order to get out without any sort of police personnel asking you any sort of fucking questions. And this is where the movie takes a severe change in pace, and we see Cooper lose all fucking control. So he, in some way or form, ends up grabbing Lady Raven before she can even make her way to Riley, shows her the video footage that we saw earlier in the film of the young man being strapped up to a pole with a chair, a bucket, and I think like a water bottle near him. And Cooper tells Lady Raven that he's the man that the whole team is looking for, that he's the butcher, but that she is not going to do anything or say anything in order to save that young man's life. We come to learn that this young man's name is Spencer. Cooper lays out all his conditions to Lady Raven, and Lady Raven is compliant, adhering to every single one of his requests. This is all happening without Riley knowing exactly what her father has done in the past or as of right now. Mind you, she's living the time of her fucking life. Lady Raven at some point comes to her and says, like, hey, you know what? You're going to come out with me. You're going to get in my limo. We're going to go for a cute little drive. I'm going to drop you off at your house. For a 12 or 13-year-old who got to not only go to her dream concert, dance on stage and be the dream girl that she's always wanted to be, and gets cool concert souvenirs, throw in a cute little limousine ride with your favorite artist into that mix, and this is the fucking day of her life. The highest she can ever get. So Lady Raven gets into her limo with the father and daughter coming along with them, obviously to their house, and Lady Raven gets to know the rest of the family. However, she looks fucking terrified doing it, even though it was her idea to begin with. So I think Cooper kind of drops the idea that Lady Raven should leave them somewhere that's close to their house, but Lady Raven says, you know what, I'll do you one better. I'll just take you home. So once Lady Raven makes it into the house, she does some cute little small talk with the rest of the family, eats some of the snacks. She ends up making an offer to provide a small live performance for the family as a token of her appreciation for just hosting. She goes over to the piano and plays one of her own songs, which Riley joins her on the piano bench to sing along and play along. Mind you, at this point, I don't fucking know how Lady Raven has a voice to begin with after the performance that she gave, but I fucking digress. Lady Raven asks for somebody to take a photo of the whole interaction with all the Coopers, with all of Cooper's close eye on the star. However, despite Cooper's best effort, Lady Raven gets the best of Cooper by trying to take away his phone. He's been using it to make sure Lady Raven behaves while with his family. And Lady Raven, with the cell phone that has the video footage of Spencer, ends up locking herself in the bathroom that's right adjacent to the living room. Lady Raven is able to get on the app, talk to Spencer through the video app footage. I'm assuming it's something similar to like a live ring or a blink or a security camera of some sort, and ask Spencer if there's any sort of landmarks or any sort of features that he remembers whenever he was being dragged into the basement. At this point, we Here, more than we see, Cooper drop the innocent guy act for his family as he slams on the door and starts cursing at everybody. Mind you, Riley is not the only kid that Cooper has. Cooper also has a younger son. With all the noises that we hear, and with Lady Raven trying to get all the landmarks that Spencer could have noticed while being dragged into this wild-ass house, we don't know if it's the house that Lady Raven is in right now, Cooper ends up getting his entire family into a room and then comes back down to collect his phone. You only know this because you hear the pounding on the door whenever he's going fucking crazy. And then you hear the footsteps go above Lady Raven while she's in the downstairs bathroom. And then you hear it come back down and he starts banging on the door again. During this entire process, while Cooper is tucking away his family into one of the bedrooms, Lady Raven actually gets on her own cell phone and goes on live streams on Instagram, asking for her fans to help her, or something like Instagram, I would think, asking for her fans to help her find a man who is locked away in a basement in the city that she was just performing in with all the landmarks that she found. And I think this is the first time where I saw IG Live become very useful, because you see people in the comments actually saying, hey, I live in this city. I know where you're talking about. And one commenter in specific says, I live in that neighborhood that you're talking about right now. Lady Raven takes notes of this and talks to the follower specifically and says, if anybody is near or has any idea, please go there. This is serious. Somebody's life is in danger. Right around at this point, Cooper breaks down the door, gets his phone back, looks at the app and sees that Spencer is no longer there. And he snaps even fucking more. And he decides that since Spencer isn't there, Lady Raven is going to be taking Spencer's place. Cooper starts explaining where his tendencies came from while dealing with Lady Raven, so where all his attributes and his characteristics came from, if you will, but not without her using some of the information that the profiler gave her to use against someone like Cooper, someone who is a sociopath. So you see Lady Raven almost shift into the role of a mother who is scowling and disciplining her quote-unquote son with words. At this point, there's like a few different cat and mouse scenes, and you see Cooper and Lady Raven almost get caught by the very people they don't want to be caught. Cooper essentially being caught by the law enforcement and Lady Raven being caught by her fans. However, she ends up using her fans to her advantage. Cooper, however, finally gets arrested after the constant back and forth and the constant fake outs of the film. So I want to say from the point of Cooper snapping and Lady Raven doing the persona of a mom, or at least Cooper's mom, there is 4 or 5 fake outs of Cooper getting arrested and potentially finding Lady Raven, and Lady Raven being caught by Cooper and then slipping by the skin on her teeth. My biggest criticism of this film entirely is that it had about 8 different endings, and I completely disengaged from the movie by the second fake out. So I want to say about the second time we hear a set of sirens go off, I got so fucking bored that I actually ended up getting up from the couch and I was doing small tasks around the house. I would come to the TV every once in a while just to check in and see if any changes have occurred. But during, I want to say, this time period, and it was like a good 25 minutes, it felt like the longest 25 minutes of my entire fucking life, because of a constant, Cooper almost got caught by the police, but he didn't. Lady Raven almost got caught by Cooper, but she didn't. Up until he finally gets tackled down by the police in a very public area in the city near the stadium that Lady Raven had just performed. And Cooper gets arrested by the police there. Mind you, Cooper at one point is driving the very limousine that Lady Raven is in because Cooper decided to slaughter her driver for the limo. I don't know. I liked the movie up until the very end. I thought it did a very good job of building a lot of this tension. Even though the movie was predictable, I still very much liked it. I don't need a movie to be unpredictable for it to be good, at least in my eyes. But overall, I would give this movie about a 4 out of 10. Just due to the fucking fact that I got so fucking bored by the last 30 minutes of the film. Which usually is the part that keeps a lot of the viewers hooked. And a lot of the times I catch myself saying, how the fuck are they going to wrap all this up? That wasn't the case with this movie. At this point, I was saying, when is this fucking done? IMDb scores it at a 6 out of 10, which I think is generous. I honestly feel like M. Night Shyamalan peaked in the very late 90s and early 2000s for his films, but most of his recent films seem to be missing the mark, or at least not the kind of mark that I'm used to whenever it comes to horror films. I even think Knock on the Cabin had a couple of fake out scenes before the movie ended fully. And I get it, some of these new gen horror films like you to keep you guessing whenever it comes to the ending of the film, but I swear, I want to say during the last 2 years, most new horror films don't know where to end, or at the very least, I am waiting for the movie to finish. I think Trap was the first one where I genuinely got disinterested. But the rest of the movies, at the very least, I'm just kind of like, I mean, okay, we can continue. I don't mind. I don't need to have a cliffhanger. This one, I just wanted it to end. I want to be like, let Cooper get caught or let Cooper kill Lady Raven. I need one of these two to happen. I can't keep having these constant fake outs, these constant back and forths. Like, the tension isn't there anymore, at least for me. I will say, though, that Josh Hartnett, or the actor for Cooper, carries the fucking movie, and he plays the character of Cooper so well. He made the hair on the back of my neck stand up and stay up for the good portion of the movie. Like I said before, there are several moments in this movie where you see Cooper's eyes go from the happy-go-lucky dad who is excited to be there for his daughter, that his daughter scored high scores on her report card, to the fucking killer who's been out there pulling and slicing people's body apart for I don't know how long. I'm assuming for a relatively decent amount of time, since FBI, SWAT, profilers, things like that are involved. I don't know. His eyes would constantly shift. His demeanor would shift. The way that he carried himself would shift. You would feel uncomfortable whenever Cooper was in that stalker, predator mode, if you will. Whenever he was switching back to like the picket fence father, you felt like he was a very trustworthy person. You could also see the two personalities bleeding from the other, if you will. So like when Cooper was dealing with the staff member earlier during, like the staff member at the merchandise den, you could feel the fakeness of Cooper bleeding out in that persona in that given moment when he asked the stadium staff member, so what's going on with all the law enforcement? However, in situations like with Cooper dealing with the SWAT team showing up in the break room and him nonchalantly going for a cup of coffee, there was no bleeding in that moment. Cooper was just another person who was working in the stadium that the SWAT team members' eyes would glaze over whenever he was walking through. So Josh did a very, very good job. In all honesty, I feel like if Cooper was played by anybody else, the movie wouldn't have been as good, or at least I wouldn't have enjoyed it as much. Riley definitely carried her part, and all the other actors carried her part. There is a cute little plot twist thrown into the mix where it turns out that Cooper's wife is the one who tipped off law enforcement, but unintentionally. So she was convinced that Cooper was actually going out and having an affair. But when she started looking into things, she noticed that he didn't necessarily have affair-esque material with him, and that she was starting to get a little worried, but she didn't think that he would be the butcher. I mean, no one fucking would. So she ended up tipping off the police, and I guess she tipped them off at the right day, at the right time, because they saw the receipt for the tickets of Lady Raven's concert being dropped at the house that Spencer was tied to. So Cooper was having all his slice and dice moments in different homes throughout the city that he was in. I think in homes that were marked as vacant before they would sell. He essentially told his whole story to Lady Raven before the final arrest scene, if you will, that he bounces from home to home that is left either unrented or vacant for a long period of time and does his shit. And whenever he picks up on the fact that that house is going to be moved into, he moves on to another home. So I guess the wife tipped them off just right, and Spencer just stayed at one of the houses a little too long. So everything lined up to where this whole event or operation took place at Lady Raven's concert. When Cooper is finally arrested, you can see Riley's face shift from earlier in the movie, the day being one of the best days of her life, to it ending with it being one of the worst days of her life. Because despite all the evidence pointing to Cooper being the killer, Riley still is crying and goes and gives a hug to her father. Doesn't punch her, doesn't slap him, or doesn't punch him, doesn't slap him, just gives him a tight squeeze. And then goes back to the mom. So, again, going back to the end of this thing, Josh did a very, very fucking job selling this movie. However, if it wasn't for him, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't have been as interested or as engaged. And despite his very good acting, I just couldn't get past the fact that the movie had 8 different moments where it could just stop and it would be done. So at the end of it all, Cooper actually ends up escaping. We don't really know what happens from there. So if there's going to be a trap 2, then we'll see how that happens. But if the movie's going to be like an ambiguous ending, then I'm just going to say Cooper's going to go out and continue his body count and strike it up. Who knows? Lady Raven might be on the top of the list, but we'll see how lucky he gets getting to her. All in all, though, if you guys enjoyed this episode, please let me know. I would love to hear your feedback. Give us a little review, however many stars you feel like this episode needed, or likes, I guess, this episode needed, or just let us know what you think about our channel overall. If there's any other films that you would like for me or me and MJ to also cover soon, let us know, because I think he and I are probably going to do Nosferatu very, very soon. And then we have a couple other ideas up our sleeves as well. Keep an eye out though, because sometime later on this month, we're going to have a very, very, very special episode. And I'm very excited to have you guys listen in, but I cannot share any more. Without talking your ear off though, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your Tuesday, and I will talk to y'all next time.